What is up, Facebook land? Welcome to another episode of the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. I am your host, Matt Cubbler, and before I introduce my buddy, Daniel Gomez, I'm going to first dedicate a show, as I always do. I'm going to dedicate this show to breast cancer survivors. I know Daniel's wife recently has been battling breast cancer. I know my mother has twice. Unfortunately, my wife's sister passed from it. And we've all had somebody who's impacted our lives or that's been a part of our lives that has been impacted by cancer, especially breast cancer with women and men. I lost a buddy of mine who's a cop, a male who had breast cancer. So tonight is for everybody who has loved and lost somebody or loved and is still with somebody who has survived breast cancer. So that's the dedication today. The podcast, everybody, I need everybody to go and like and rate and review the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. It's very important. It actually helps grow the podcast so that I can get more subscribers, some more downloads, get rated higher within iTunes and all the other platforms. So it's really important that we do that. So if you're going to be a fan, that would really help me out. My man, Daniel Gomez, is a San Antonio-based leadership expert, business coach, speaker, author. The guy just does it all. He brings energy. He is a super intellectual guy. The message that he brings is inspiring. It's faith-based. He's a God-fearing man, and I appreciate that in him. We had a prayer right before the show, which was really cool. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend Daniel Gomez. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me, my friend. How you doing today, sir?
Awesome, brother. I think it's pretty cool the way that life works out. You know, we're all part of the same circles for speakers on social media and how we become friends and we follow each other. And we've never met, never even spoken until about 14 minutes ago. And so I think it's pretty cool that we're able to get together and have this hour-long conversation, and I can get to learn more about you.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's an honor to be here on your show, and I'm excited. I just finished an assembly right now, so I was rushing to get home, and so forgive me if I'm a little out of breath, but I'll tell you what, I've been looking forward to this podcast being on your show, so I really want to just be real and add value to your audience, and hopefully we can encourage somebody or inspire somebody or maybe give somebody an idea. You never know. So that's the whole purpose of it.
So let's get into it. Let's figure out where this conversation leads. Like I said before we went live, I never have questions. I sort of just let the conversation evolve. But I always lead with one. And the first one is who is Daniel Gomez and how did you get to become who you are today?
Well, Daniel Gomez has gone through a big change. As a matter of fact, my neighbor was over here a little while ago and we were talking about breast cancer. My wife had surgery on Friday. So my in-laws have been here for a couple of days and my neighbor texted me and goes, "Hey man, you hungry?" And I was like, you know what? I think, whatever you can bring over, we're grateful for that. So he actually went in, because my wife can't cook right now and I was out speaking. So he brought some food over and he was there with his wife and she's like, "You know what, Daniel?" She goes, "You're totally different now." And I'm like, "Why is that?" She goes, "I don't know. I just feel your spirit is just, I don't know, you're a lot more at peace." And so if I had to say who's Daniel Gomez, I don't recognize him sometimes now too, man, because, I think when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago, I was an arrogant, cocky male, to be honest with you. And when I really just got away from life, the busyness, when I had to make the decision between running an automobile dealership, which I used to do, or taking care of my wife, I said, what good does money do me if my wife dies? So I stepped back from my career as far as in the car business for almost 20 years. And, just the busyness of employees was gone. Worrying about 500 cars was gone. So it's like I didn't have anything to worry about. But as the busyness went away, the person that remained was the old Daniel. And when I looked him in the mirror, I didn't really like who he was.
So let's look at that. You said you did 20 years in the car business. Obviously, life is complicated, right? We have bills to pay. We have a family to support. We have a lot of things that are placed upon us as men. But I think anybody that a husband or a wife that's got a family has those those desires to go out and provide. And, when did you decide that the person you were isn't the one you wanted to be anymore? What was that moment like?
Well, what happened was they had asked me when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. They go, "Do you mind if we go over to your house and pray for your wife?" And at the moment, I looked at the person and I said, "Why would I mind?" Right? In my own thinking, I didn't verbally say that, but I don't forget that day. Like, why would I mind if somebody would come? I said, "No, I don't mind." So they ended up coming and praying for my wife, and it was an amazing evening. But now looking back, they saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And the reason they asked me that is because I guess they could see my heart, and I couldn't even see my own heart at the time, because it was just, how can I say it? I thought I was close to God, but I wasn't, I guess. You know what I mean? I guess they saw something in me that wasn't of God. And I guess at the time that when all this happened, I had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But I knew that when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, I always believe that God comes to you, right? There's stories in the Bible, just stories that you hear that, to me, God gives you a bump in the road. And if we ignore that bump in the road, for me, it's like, well, I can take care of it monetarily. Well, then God gives you a fender bender, and it's like, well, you know what? It's only $2,000. I can cover that bill. No biggie. Well, then he says, you know what? Daniel's not getting what I'm trying to teach him. So let me just send this major car accident to say, and that was a breast cancer with my wife. And it hit me dead on. I felt like I got hit with a runaway truck. But at that moment,
there, when you had that moment, because I've shared it many times on this show that I had my moment. Like, I went through a really dark period in my life where I didn't believe in God anymore. I didn't have faith in him anymore. I was so angry that he would take my brother, who passed away when I was 18. And I lived with that anger and survivor's guilt and all those other feelings you have when you lose somebody unexpectedly. But I had a moment. It was definitive. Like, it was it happened. And it woke me up, and it was like I saw color and light, and I felt, and it was like this wow moment when God forgave me and I forgave God. And did you have one of those moments? Because I know you have, and we're going to get more into your backstory from when, with your mom and growing up and all that kind of stuff. But did you have, with this specific incident with your wife, did you have that moment where you're like, holy crap, this is who I am now. This is who I want to be?
I think it was more of a come to Jesus moment. Yeah, it was like, for me, it was come to Jesus, because when I got saved when I was 26 years old. When they gave my dad a month to live, I gave my life to Christ at that time. And for 5 years, I served God, and everything I did was about God. But over the last, I guess, probably 12 years, I backslid. I would still go to church, but my heart wasn't in it. And a lot of times we fool ourselves because we think we're in it, and our bodies are there, we're there, but my heart wasn't there. But I couldn't see that because I couldn't see how far I had come. So when this happened to my wife, I felt guilty because I felt it was my fault, because God had warned me many times. But I was like Samson, right? I was ignoring the signs and doing what Daniel wanted to do, be on his Harley, be out there running dealerships. Because when you run dealerships, everything comes easy. That's the reality of it. Whatever you want, when you're the general sales manager, general manager, people serve you. And it's not to say that I abused it, but I just, you take a lot of things for granted is what it is. And I thought because I provided for my family monetarily, because I provided for my son and my daughter, and you buy them the latest cars and whatever it is, you feel like you're doing what a dad's supposed to do. But sometimes all they want is just the father's love. And sometimes your wife, all she wants is just her husband's love. Even though I was there with her, I could say my heart wasn't there sometimes, because I was just, to me, I was more worried about, okay, we got to make this profit. We got to run a multi-million-dollar organization. We got to get the bottom line. I got 100 employees I'm responsible for. It's just a lot of crap that goes through your head, that you're at home, but you're not at home sometimes. And at the same time, you think you're with God and you're not with God. So when all this happened, it was just like a come to Jesus. Like I knew at that moment, it's like, you know what, if I don't change, shit's going to go wrong. And I really felt, I honestly, at that moment, I felt guilty, Matt. I think I kind of condemned myself because I knew it was on me. I knew that when my wife called me that September day and she told me that, she was crying, and it's like, I felt a spirit of guilt because I felt that it was my responsibility. That God had been trying to talk to me, and God had been trying to talk to me. And I'm no better than Jonah. The same way a whale swallowed him up to get him where he needed to go, well, this whale swallowed me up, getting me where I needed to go. And if I didn't respond the right way, things were going to get worse. But the irony of that is that once I got back connected to God the way I used to be, I'm happier. It's hard to explain, man. I haven't actually, this past Super Bowl was a year straight that I hadn't had a beer. And not that I'm condemning anybody that had a beer, but just for me, that was one of my drugs, one of my weaknesses. I love beer. I haven't had a beer. Super Bowl was the year that I hadn't had a beer. So that was a big accomplishment for me.
Let's go back a little bit farther into your life. I know that you have an interesting backstory growing up. You had some trauma, some heartache, some sorrow that you went through. Because I think when you look at, you wrote a book, I wrote a book. My book was a chronological look at my life living with my brother up until his death. And when you go back and you relive your life from the beginning until that moment when he died, that you learn how life is not a segment of moments. It's a string and connectivity of events that lead you down different paths that God is directing you in. And sometimes you ignore God, and sometimes you follow, and you can see the paths you took and where the ignoring God part took you, and where the acknowledging the opportunity and the path that's put in front of you and where that took you. And I had the chance to do that. And I'd love to hear that part of your story, to know so that people can connect those events to see how you got to today. I know how you got to the point where your wife, you had that come to Jesus moment. But prior to that, what happened? What was the journey like for Daniel?
I would say in 2011, I resigned from my job for a while from running dealerships, and I was burned out on management. And I just really wanted to worry about me. So I went in, they hired me at Enterprise, and I ran a used car lot over here. I was part of the team there in Bernie, and I was the account executive there, and it was an amazing small team. But I think at that moment, it helped me just to step back and draw closer to God, to say. But the thing that happened for me there that was really hard was I lost like 3 brothers in a year, almost within like 2 years' time. And that really made me numb. I wasn't mad at God, because just one of my brothers committed suicide, and I prayed for him, and I was there for him, but I couldn't save him, and I couldn't. It just one of those things. He ended up taking his life. He hung himself with a orange extension cord, one of those commercial extension cords. So when I got that call, I remember I got drunk that day, and just like we were in San Marcos, because a lot of my dad's family lives in San Marcos, which is about an hour from here. So then he passed away. Then about less than a year later, my older brother had cirrhosis of the liver, and he ended up passing away. His liver just turned to stone and didn't work anymore. So I was just like, I think by that point you start getting a little numb to death. And I missed him, but it just was one of those things that it's like, it's part of life. People say, how can you be heartless? It's like, it's not that I'm not heartless, but you become numb to it, because I had lost my mom. I had lost my dad. My brother committed suicide. It's like, I've put it at my age right now, I've been to more funerals than a lot of people. And it's one of those things that I've experienced, and it's part of life. It doesn't, not that I don't care, but it's like, hey, two things we're guaranteed: to be born and to be dead. And then I think it really affected me that I didn't realize that my last brother that passed away, they don't know if he had an aneurysm or what he had, but they found him dead at his house. I had just gone back to run a dealership. That first week I was there at the Chevy dealership, and my aunt called me that I needed to go to my brother's apartment, his house. So I was like, what? I'm like, what's wrong? She goes, you just need to come here. He was on the floor. He was dead for like 2 days. So when that happened, it's like, that one hit me, but I didn't allow the emotions to show. And I think without realizing it, I had become numb in different areas of my life. So losing 3 brothers in 2 years, it's just like people would, I remember employees would come to me and say, hey, I got this, somebody sick in my life or in my.
I apologize for that, guys. We have a little bit of a technical difficulty. I'm going to message him real quick and let him know we popped out. So we'll see if we can get this thing going again. Not sure what happened. That was a great part of the story. Daniel's story is pretty cool, though, when you think about it, when you think about the journey. And I'm hoping that he does come back in so we can finish this amazing interview. Yeah, here he comes, I think. Let's hope. There you are, brother.
What happened?
We lost you. I don't know. We lost you for a second.
I was like, okay. I was like, uh-oh. So I
just so you know where you left off, when you zapped out was when you were talking to an employee come and say somebody had sick or something like that.
So an employee had asked me, and I didn't realize it. And my assistant goes, why are you so like rude? I was like, I'm not being rude. Why? But I didn't see it. But it's like, just because I don't react that way to death anymore doesn't mean that it's not life-changing, because when my dad passed away, I fell apart, to be real. So I think I had become, my heart was numb. And I think when this happened to my wife, it really woke up my heart to really have feelings and care for people. And I think that's what happened is when 2014 came around, 2014, 2015, 2016, those 3 years, I just became, I don't want to say I was heartless in a bad way, but I was just heartless because I had lost my brothers. And it's just like, you're going to die. So what, what are you going to do? Might as well have fun and live life. Right. That was my thinking in a sense. And, just, it's not the way to think, but I think in my own way, I was grieving that way. And I suppressed my own emotions. That's just the way I responded. And then you're given this responsibility for other employees. And, but I think when it came to death, or funerals, I responded that way. But I was always one to like give my employees $100 for nothing, or give them $20 for this, or here, go buy lunch, or like, I believe that we turned that dealership around that was losing $1 million to making $1 million, a $2 million turnaround profit from loss, because I just always gave, but I believed in that. But I think when it came to funerals and death, my heart was different because I was immune to it. I was dead.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. And, when I think about your story and I'm hearing your story and like I said, and if we're going to hear my dog howling here in about 2 seconds, we got sirens going by my house, and I'm hoping he does not start howling but actually it's pretty funny to hear. But anyways, I think my wife has him under control, so he's not howling. But when I hear your story and I go back to how I felt when my brother died. Now, mind you, I was 18, he was 21. My brother was autistic and stuttered and special needs, and his death was just so unfair in that he had suffered his whole life with the stigmatism of stuttering and autism and being called a retard and all those things growing up in the areas where we grew up, where it wasn't necessarily the nicest or the safest. And I remember how I felt when he died. And when he said numb, that's what I was. I was numb to love. I was numb to feeling worth and value and appreciation. I was angry as hell, and I was destructive internally and externally. But numb is the right word, and I think when I had my grace from God moment, it's very similar in the fact that it was this God said to me, it's okay. You can grieve, you can feel, you can miss him, you can love him, you can, and then you can also love and experience that joy with other people without that guilt, without that feeling as if you shouldn't be allowed to have that. And I think what I'm hearing, and you may tell me to go pound sand, but what I'm hearing is that when you were finally given that that crossroad where God said, you need to stop this path you're on, and your wife's cancer, and the choice to be at home and care for your wife and leave the job that while you were helping other people there by giving them things and turning that business around, it wasn't doing anything for you internally. And you had an opportunity where God said, this is it. This is your chance to forgive yourself, to love again, to open your heart up and feel, and you took it.
Yeah, pretty much. I think as human beings, whether for me it was beer, right? Whether it's beer, whether it's your Harley, whether it's, some of us have a food addiction, some of us have a shopping addiction. That's why we have $20,000 in credit card debt when we have clothes in our closet. We have clothes in our closet that has tags on it, or shoes, or whether it's, any type of addiction, we try to fill that void that we have. And my void was just drinking beer. Not that I was an alcoholic, but I would, come Friday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was like, I was out with the guys, or we'd go out and do something, and we're always out doing something. But it was just a void that you try to fill. And I thought I was filling it because I would go to church, but it was like I had one foot in, one foot out. But when this happened to my wife, it's like it was the come to Jesus, and I had to say, put it this way: a lot of the people that I was talking to 2 years ago, a lot of them don't call me anymore, or we just don't associate. Not because I don't want to, but it's just, I guess you lose that common. Like, put it this way, I guess, like with yourself, with Sean, with Jake Valentine, Tony Watley, I consider y'all my friends, and I really do. It's because we have a lot of things in common when we're in the same arena. And I think as you grow into the person that God wants you to be, as you go out there and you change who you are, you grow into a different frequency of life. It's like barbecue and drinking beer all day on a Friday or Saturday it's not what I want to do. I don't want to be on my Harley Davidson at a bar and on a Friday night. That's not what I want to do anymore. I want to be giving people, I want to be serving people, because that's what I used to do. And I think what you just said helped me realize, I think, is that God really showed me how to love again. And he gave me a new heart. But I didn't think I needed a new heart, but he gave me one because I needed a new heart. I just didn't see it. And if my wife wouldn't have been diagnosed with breast cancer, I would have never gotten my new heart.
That is so profound, because I've said, and I'm going to do comparisons between me and you, because it's unfortunate, but we have suffered the similar losses. And when I was going through my period, I knew I was broken, whereas you didn't necessarily identify that there was a problem per se. You just kind of were like, whatever. I feel numb. I'm not experiencing the love and joy, but it was just kind of whatever. For me, I knew I was broken. I just couldn't figure out how to get out of it. I knew that I was angry. I knew I was pissed off about my brother's death. I knew I was angry at God, and all those things were very clear to me. I just didn't know how to forgive myself and get out of it. And when I think about it, and people, they ask me all the time, why was I so angry? Why was I so guilt-ridden? It's because I had lost my purpose. And I didn't think about it until somebody asked me the question, but my purpose in life was protecting my brother. I mean, every day was literally getting my brother out to school. And then when he comes home from school, making sure he got off the bus without getting picked on, or if he did, I got into a fight. And it was just, every day was just this process, me, my mom, and my brother, me, my mom, and my brother, that I was always protecting my brother. And when he died, I had nobody left to protect. And all I was left was with me. And I didn't like me. And I didn't like me when he was alive that much, but I certainly didn't like me when he was dead. because I was so angry that why would God take the only pure human being I've ever known in my life away from me and leave me alone? And that purpose was reborn the day that God showed me grace, because it showed me that I didn't have to forget my brother or not acknowledge his death, but celebrate his life and utilize his death, which saved my life, to better humanity. Go out and speak of my brother and share his story and share his greatness. And I think you're going through that right now. Like, that was your new heart that God gave you, was because your wife's illness required you to be 100% committed and tell God, I'm putting this in your hands, and allowed you to then go out and see things. Like, when I say that I could see everything now, like, things become so clear to me. Opportunities become clear. When people are talking to me, everything they do is very clear, like their body language, their mannerisms, everything.
Well, let me tell you, it's funny you say that, because your new heart even lets you, like yesterday, my wife had surgery on Friday. So like yesterday I was doing laundry. I washed the clothes, I folded the clothes. And then this morning, like, we took a shower, and I helped her take a shower, and because she still has drains coming out of her body, you know. And so she's like, well, honey, can you put lotion on me? So like, I'm doing stuff probably that I should have been doing before this, but it's like, you know, doing laundry, folding towels, folding clothes, putting lotion on her legs, putting lotion on her feet, drying her. And it's like, it's stuff that a husband should be doing, honoring his wife anyways, but I would have never probably done that. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't do that before. And it just, your new heart doesn't just give you the love to love your wife, the love to love your children, my son, my daughter, but it gives you the love to genuinely do things, to say, you know, I want to do the laundry because it's going to help my wife. Or like today or yesterday morning, it's like I made the bed, and it's like before I would have probably said, you know what, I'm going to make the bed. Mari won't make it, but it's like, no, you know what, she can't make it right now, so let me make the bed because I want to help her out, because I know if I didn't make the bed, she's going to try to make the bed. It's something simple, but it's profound. But giving you a new heart of love, you really serve the person people that are in front of you. And I think that's why I love to speak. Like, I just came from that assembly at the high school, and you know, it was amazing. After I finished, one of the students came up to me, and his eyes were all teared up, and he was crying, and his name was Jose. And he goes, "Do you have a book, sir? Where can I get a book from? Or where's your book at?" And I was just like, he caught me off guard because I was kind of turned around, and he was right in my face. I said, "Hey, son, I'm Daniel. What's your name?" He goes, "Oh, I'm Jose." He goes, "You really touched my heart." And just to see that, you know, that people just don't see your heart by the deeds that you do, but by the words that you say. Man, God uses your words, and they really pierce a person's spirit. Because one thing that I can guarantee you, of what religion or whatever you believe in, and I'm not here to preach doctrine to anybody, but we're all put here on this planet with a little void in our hearts, with a little void in our soul. And the only thing that can fill that void is the love of Christ. I don't care who you are, what state you're from, what country you're from, what region of this world you're at. That's the way we're designed. And we go through life frustrated, mad at things, because we're trying to fill this void, like I said, whether it's with alcohol, food, shopping, whatever it may be, women, men, if you're, you know, whatever it may be, and nothing's ever going to satisfy you like the love of Christ. And when that love touches your soul, touches your heart, and gives you that new heart, you just want to serve people. You just want to do things. You just want to, you want to put a helping hand out there. And I think that's what I love about what I see the old me coming back. When I first got saved when I was 26, it's like, you think you do things because you love people, because you value people. And I see that now. And that wasn't me. I think just from being numb from all my brothers passing away, it's like, you know, it's part of life. Get over it. You know what I mean? But my demeanor is like, you know, maybe I can inspire this person. Maybe I can help this person through the day. Maybe I can really just encourage them to love themselves and believe in themselves, and let them know that things are going to be okay. So a new heart does a lot of things, man.
Let me ask you this, because I'm curious, because we didn't really touch on it, but you said you gave your life to Christ when you were 26, and you said for about 5 years you lived a life that you were proud of. what was it, a gradual change to where you went to where you had 1 foot in, 1 foot out in your relationship with God? Was it a moment? Like, was there a definitive, like, when you, to give your life to Christ, to make that choice when you're 26 years old? A lot of us, we're baptized and we go through confirmation or communion, or having your moments where you're through your youth, you're going through this process in the church. You gave your life to Christ when you're 26, but you're saying that after about a 5-year period, things changed. Was there a definitive moment that caused that, or did it just sort of, you got consumed with success and consumed with material things and ego things?
No, I think it goes back to the rule that everybody talks about. The 5 people you associate with, it affects you. And we have a saying, right? If you go to the beach, sooner or later you're going to get sand in your car, no matter how careful you are. If you go to the beach every day, sooner or later you're going to get sand in your car. And what that analogy says is, sooner or later you hang around with the wrong crowd, you're going to give into the environment around you. And it was just one of those things that it wasn't bad. Like in San Antonio, we have a big event called Fiesta, and it's coming up here in about a month and a half, where it's the biggest party in the country besides I think Mardi Gras. But everybody goes there. But they have beer, drinks, food, they have everything, and it's not a bad deal. But if you go to the wrong parts of Fiesta, you're gonna give into temptation sooner or later. And I think one day we went to there was a Tejano concert, and I had a drink, and then you feel guilty because it's not right, but it's like anything else. The second time you do it, it doesn't feel as bad, and then next thing you know, your consciousness is seared, and you don't feel it like you used to. And then before you know it, a year later, you're not where you used to be, and then you ask for forgiveness, but then you don't really mean it because your heart's not in the same place. So it's just kind of it's a gradual. For me, it was gradual because I always went to church, but like I said, I was there, but my heart wasn't there. And I would hear God every once in a while, but then it got to the point where I told my wife, I don't know what happened. I think it was when one of my brothers passed away. I cried. I said, I don't hear from God anymore. And she goes, well, how do you expect to hear from God if you don't spend time with God? And it was like a slap in the face, but she was right. But I had no one to blame but myself. But I think at that point, I was so far away that it was just easier to stay on this other. It was easier to stay on this other side, because this is one thing that most people don't realize is I knew the godly principles. I lived them, right? As far as financially goes, because I was doing very well financially, and that's the problem. I knew them, so I applied them. No matter where my heart was, I would always give, I would always tithe, I would always help people financially. So you reap what you sow. That's God's. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not a Christian. I would run into a lot of Christians that would say, "Well, how come this person's blessed and he's not even a believer?" Well, it's because he gives, he helps, and you're a believer, and you don't even want to give 10% of your check to what the Word of God says. And I'm not doing that to condemn anybody, but I'm just saying you have an unbeliever that gives to people, that helps people, that they don't believe in God, but they're doing the principles that of financial success. Well, they're going to be blessed because you're reaping, you're sowing those seeds into the ground, and whatever you reap, you're going to sow. It doesn't matter what it is. And I knew that, but I didn't do it on purpose. But I knew that my success in my career was based because God had put me there. That's one thing I never forgot. That's one thing I never doubted. I said, I'm where I'm at and no matter where I was at, I would, whether I was at a bar, no matter if I was at a barbecue, no matter if I was at church, I'm like, I'm where I'm at in my career because of God. And I always gave God the glory for that. So me knowing that, I always gave him 10, 20, whatever percentage he asked me to give. That's one thing I was obedient at. But that's the 10% of my heart that he had. The other 90%, he didn't have it. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's easy to follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, right? When you know what those steps are, and it's like a list. It's a checklist. And you go down that checklist and you feel good because you're like, all right, checklist complete, whether it's the honey-do list, whether it's the God commandments list, whatever it is. If you got a checklist, it's a lot easier to do when it's in front of you and you know what you have to do in order to be successful, right? It's the fear of the unknown, the commitment of your soul to something that, I read a book recently. I don't know if you've heard of Danny Bader. Danny Bader is an amazing speaker, amazing mind, business mind, and a very faith-based guy. I had him on the show probably about 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. And he wrote 3 books. Danny was electrocuted. Him and his buddy were electrocuted, working on a roof, hit a power line with a ladder. They were both dead, him and his buddy. His buddy didn't ultimately survive. Danny came back, but he had a God moment. He was with God. And he tells that story. But the one book he wrote, the most recent one's called I Met Jesus for a Miller Lite. And it's a great fiction story, but it's in one of the things that I took from it was there's a big difference between hope and trust. I hope things will happen. I hope this will happen. I want this to happen. But when you trust it's going to happen, when you trust in something, that's a commitment. And I think a lot of people fail to commit in life. They go down their checklist because it's in front of them and it's easy to do. It's rattle them off. You're good to go. Day done. Mission complete. But when you trust in life, when you trust in your purpose and you trust in the direction you're going in, I think that changes everything. And I don't think you were trusting that. I think you were going through your daily routine and checklist, and in sales, that's what it is. I mean, you got your funnel, right? You got sales funnel. You got all these things are processes, and I think you were living a life of processes, and there was a moment there's a party that was void of that trust in who you were and where you were going, and I think knowing now your direction and knowing now that your heart is 100% trusting in your direction. I think that's just brilliant. I think it's amazing. And I think that's why when I first met you online, what jumped out at me wasn't your success as a speaker, it was your smile. It was the fact that you emitted joy. And for me, I'm a body language guy. Human behaviors, that's my background. That's my expertise, is in understanding what makes people tick. And when I see joy, that can't be faked. You have fake smiles. You have people that are, the people that'll make you believe whatever it is they're trying to sell. But joy is real, and I think having that emit from you is powerful. And I think that's what's leading to your success because you feel it in your heart.
Yeah, I was gonna say something. I lost my train of thought. You threw me off with the smile. But, I totally went mind blank right there.
That's all right. So I'm going to ask you one question then. So we haven't touched on young Daniel yet. We haven't gone into your youth. And I know that you lost your mom at an early age, right?
Yes.
How old were you when that happened?
10. I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old when my mom passed away. And I remember, as a matter of fact, this memory's been coming up on me this past week, 4 times already that I've talked about it. And, but I never really thought about it. But I was 10 years old. And I remember my aunt telling me, we went to my aunt's house and she pulled me aside and she told me that my mom had been sick from breast cancer and she just didn't make it anymore. And I think that crushed me. I think that really hit me. But I think that I was so young that I didn't really realize it. And I think as I got older, just having lost my mom, because I was pretty close to her when I was a little kid, and from what I remember, it builds up those trust issues because what you knew wasn't there anymore. And going back to what you said about now I remember, going back to what you were talking about, you can hope and you can trust. One of the biggest things that I've had to fight myself with, that God is like, okay, dude, you're going to do it my way or you're going to do it your way. It's trust. Because the scripture that comes to mind that God brought me to was Psalms 46:10 that says, be still and know I am God. And everybody quotes it, everybody knows it. But when you go back to the original Hebrew text, it doesn't stand for be still. Be still means let go in Hebrew. So let go and know that I am God. And when he reminded me of that and I studied it, and it's like, what are you trying to tell me? He goes, you're not letting go. But the thing is, I've had trust issues in my life because I lost my mom, I lost my dad, I lost my brother. So it's like, what can you trust in that I trusted in these things and they're not there anymore. So I can't trust in it. So how it was hard for me to trust him vertically, because horizontally, my relationships with my mom, she's gone. With my dad, he's gone. When my brothers are gone. So I can't tell him, well, you know what, in 20 years, I trust that we're going to be together. We're not, because I've experienced that. I'm not going to lie to myself or lie to somebody, because these relationships horizontally, they don't last forever because people pass away or things happen. So how can I trust this way if I can't trust this way? So I had to let go and trust this way. And as I trust this way, then I trust this way. But I was trusting the other way. I was trusting vertically first. And in that, there was no trust because I had lost everything I loved. Does that make sense?
Oh, dude, I literally just had a moment, and I want you to follow along with me here. When you were talking, a vision came to me, and I like understanding when people have their moment where they go, that clarity moment, right? And you first words out of your mouth when we started having our interview here was telling me the story about how you had to have a choice between staying and providing and working or taking care of your wife, and how that moment changed your life. And I think that's just God saying that you need to let go and trust in him, that your mom left at the time she was supposed to leave. And that this was it's not a coincidence that the two women in your life, your mother and your wife, both had the same disease. It's not a coincidence that after you lost your mom at the age of 10 and then lost your dad and lost your brothers, that God was putting you through these tests to see where your trust in him would be. And I think this was the ultimate one where you finally recognized, whether it was conscious or not, that this was your moment to trust and to let go. And I think the correlation between your mother and your wife and the breast cancer was your saving grace, was your grace of God shown upon you, that it's okay to forgive him. It's okay to forgive yourself. It's okay to forgive the world for not being fair. And I just think that's what I felt. That's just what came through me just then when you told that story. Because I didn't know it was breast cancer. I didn't know anything about your mom's passing. But to me, that the symbolization, the correlation between those two things is just very powerful to me.
Yeah. And it came to the point where I was feeling frustrated with a lot of work. And the frustration was because I was trying to do everything. And granted, I already had my new heart. My new heart was still shaping. My new heart was still, it was there, but it was like, I had the heart, but I didn't have the trust. Until I finally surrendered. I mean, God's just opened up my business like in a way that, I had a very, very, very successful first full year, by the grace of God. And I say that humbly. And he's opened up more doors. If you would have told me that I was going to be speaking with Tim Bilyeu in less than a year of actually doing the speaking part of it, not the training part of it, I wouldn't have believed it. If you would have told me I would be on stage with Alex Stern, I wouldn't have believed it. But it's because I let go and God put me in those positions. And I truly know that. I recognize that. It wasn't Daniel. But the one thing that I've gone through all this is that it gave me the grit not to give up. And Jake Valentine said something that actually I was talking about it here to another coach that we were talking about. I said, Jake Valentine said something, and I didn't really hear. I heard him, but I didn't hear what he said. And Jake Valentine said, Daniel, you don't realize what you're doing, right? I was like, what are you doing, man? What are you talking about? It's like, I'm just doing what I do. It's like, there's no giving up. You go into that. To me, it's like survival mode, right? You do the shit you got to do. Excuse my language, but you do it. You don't complain. You just do it. You just grunt it up, and you get that grit and you do it. He goes, no, Daniel, you don't understand. He goes, your wife is battling cancer. and while your wife is battling cancer and going through radiation, going through these treatments and having surgeries, which was last October, the big one, another one, you're still growing, you're still doing your business. He goes, people don't do that. He goes, you don't see it, but people don't do that. People give up after 3 months. People give up after 6 months. He goes, and you're doing it. But I didn't see it for myself because I was just, I guess, an autopilot, right? Because I'm doing what I've always done to get businesses where they need to go to. And honestly, I last week I was on the phone with Wendy Calls. I don't know if you know who Wendy is. Mm-hmm. And she goes, she made a comment and she made me open my eyes to something. When I hung up the phone with her, I said, I'm really doing this. And I thought about what Jake had told me, and I was like, he's right. Most people would have given up. And they give up because they hit one patch of adversity and, oh man, it's too hard. Well, a lot of people, I'm not knocking what people have been through or nothing, but success isn't supposed to be easy. Success isn't supposed to be a trail walk. It builds your character. It builds who you are. It changes your mindset. It changes your heart. It changes you. It gets you out of self into other people. And it's like, that's why I love doing these podcasts, because it's like we get to, if I just like today, speaking to that school, that one kid, Jose, I mean, man, he was crying talking on this podcast with you today. We can impact one person's life and add value to them. It's like, what else could you ask for? You couldn't pay me $1 million to do that. It's like, when you serve people, the money will come. And it's been coming because I'm serving people. I'm really trying to serve. And my commitment to myself this year in 2019 was to add value to people everywhere I go. If I can add value to people, the gigs will be there, the money will be there, the trainings will be there. And it's like, it's working, because when you honor God, you reap what you sow. And God knows where you're coming from. So when I do that, it's like his blessings chase you down, and it's his word, it's his principles. His principles don't lie. But I had to see that for myself, because I didn't think about it, but I would use the word I a lot. And my coach said, you need to stop saying I, it's God, but I is your ego, because you think you do it, but you don't do it. So I want to encourage everybody, if you're struggling in your business, if you're struggling in your entrepreneur journey, if you're struggling in life or any aspect in any category of life, whatever category you want to look at, whether it's your relationships, your finances, whatever it is, what is it that you have to let go of control of? Because the moment you let go of control and you trust in God, like Matt said, not hope in God, but trust in God, you truly trust in God. Psalms 46:10, let go and know that I am God. He's never failed me, and he won't fail me. And I truly believe that the success that I had in life this past year, through all the adversity, he's carried me and my wife through. But believe me, man, October was the hardest month for us because of her breast cancer reconstruction and all the surgeries. I mean, that surgery was an 8-hour surgery. The healing took 2 months, and it stunk, man. It was just hard. But through those pains, those things that break you, that's what helps build you up to make you what God wants you to be. And he takes your weaknesses and he makes you stronger. And I can honestly say that because today, she just had her another surgery Friday. It's like, it wasn't as bad, but it was because I think we responded the right way. We weren't mad at God. We weren't angry at God. Okay, God, what's the lesson behind this? And it's been a blessing.
I think it's such a great way to look at it. A lot of people, I know a lot of people that are listening have had cancer and battled adversity. And I'm not proud of the way I handled my brother's death. But I also know that had I not gone through that 13 years of just internal destruction, that I wouldn't be here today the way that I am. I'm not me who I am me today without that period of struggle, and without my brother's death, and without all those other things that have happened. I'm not who I am today. And when you look at life as its journey in its totality, not in its moments, and you see with wide eyes, the journey that you've taken, the appreciation value grows up. You see why things were the way they are, and how you got to where you are, and why this direction didn't work out, but this direction did. And it all makes more sense when you do that. It's when we get so micro in our thinking that we look at every little moment and we stay stuck on those little moments that we don't get to see the macro view of everything. That's when we get lost. It's that, getting lost through the forest, through the trees, or whatever that saying is. That's what that means. Is you're not seeing the whole picture. And the more you can keep your mind open to that and see why this struggle is the way it is. And, my mom's going through a lot of health issues, and I look at it and I go, she's meant to right now. This is part of her journey. This is part of our journey. And how do I handle that? And how do we as a family support her? And what do we do to prove our value in her life? That's part of this journey. That's why we're doing this. And I don't question that anymore. And I love the fact that you're looking at your wife's the struggles with her illness and the surgeries, and that it's a blessing now, because it's teaching. I guarantee you it's making you a stronger couple, and it's making you better parents, better husband and wife to each other. I think all those things are probably building and growing daily within you.
Well, yeah, but think about it. I just signed a big contract at the venue we're going to be having. October 5th, we're going to have a Finding Your Inner Beauty Women's Conference. And the reason it's called Finding Your Inner Beauty is because when you have a double mastectomy as a woman, you lose your breast and you lose your identity. It's kind of like a man losing his testicles when you lose your manhood. And there was a period in my life, and she does it not as bad, but there was a period where she was changing every 3 or 4 days. She was changing all the time. Like, she would change at least twice, 3 times a day, because she would try something on. And of course, her breast ain't there to fill it up. And, she wasn't an A or an A cup. She was a C cup. And so it's like, it's noticeable. So it's like, she didn't feel beautiful on the outside. And we just kept talking. I said, honey, but you're beautiful on the inside. And then God gave me that idea. It's like, your inner beauty is what counts, hon. But I had to tell her this over and over and over and over, kind of brainwash her on that, to believe it with affirmations. And she finally started feeling confident about herself without her breast. But the reason we wanted to do this conference is because I really felt like you're talking about, through this journey that we've been through, she's learned to love herself, but she's also learned to give back to the women or other people, to help them say, hey, I'm going through this. And there's no excuse. You can be happy if you want to be happy too. And it's never easy. And I told her, I took her to a conference with me in Florida in January. And I said, there was a couple of ladies giving testimonies. And I said, honey, you really need to tell your story. Well, when I was telling her this, with her seeing somebody else, she thought a speaker was like me, like Daniel, right? Like up there and being me. And I'm like, no, so she didn't comprehend it. She just hadn't experienced that. So when we went to the conference in Florida, she's like, I go, God's talking to you through this. And she didn't say nothing. Well, then she went to the doctor to get ready for this last surgery she had. And the nurse told her, man, you're doing this, you're doing that. She's like, yeah. She goes, you need to really share your story. And she got home and she's like, before you say anything, Alberta, out here, I told you so. And sure enough, after she got to the house and we were talking, I told her, I told you so. Well, the lady told her, you need to share your story. People need to hear this. And I said, I really think God's been putting it in my heart to do this event. Well, just like that, like everything fell in place without even, I found this one venue and then I was like praying about it, found this other one. And all of a sudden my niece knew this one lady at this big new place that we have here in San Antonio, and boom, just like that. I want to help you sponsor it. Come on, boom. So what should have cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, it's like, it cost money, but it was a fraction of what it should have been, right? And people just stepped up. We had 6 vendors. We only got 2 left. Like, people are coming out of the woodwork. We've already sold tickets but it's like, because it's coming from the side of serving people and adding value to people. And by the grace of God, believe me, you're scared when you put up several $1,000s and you don't even know what the hell you're going to do. but it's part about what we're talking about, right? So this is for somebody out there struggling, that's listening to this podcast. You don't have to have it all figured out. Your responsibility is just to trust God and let go, and he's going to take care of the rest. And the same way, when I signed the contract, I let go. He brought me another speaker that I wanted without even really having to fight for it. He put the people in place that I needed. He got me this other vendor that I didn't even think about getting. And that's without even getting my nonprofit off the ground yet. And then he brought me another person to help me get my nonprofit. But that wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have let go. And like you said, not hoping God, but trusting God.
Well, while we have about 3 minutes left in the show, I want to make sure we plug your book. You have a copy there that people can see a copy of?
Oh, yeah. Here, it's You Were Born to Fly. I don't know who that good-looking Mexican guy is, but he has that smile you talk about. So yeah. It's You Were Born to Fly. It's on Amazon. Just go there, and it's on sale right now, $14.97. And it's an amazing book. It has a lot of good just success principles, leadership skills, life tips, and just everyday ideas of habits that we need to develop to really be successful. And people say, well, Daniel, how do you know this works? Well, let me tell you, because if I wasn't in the financial situation that I was in when my wife got sick, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. By the grace of God, we have paid off our house many years ago. I always lived below my means. And I talk about that, some of the principles that I use to get to where I'm at, they're in this book. But it's also having the right mindset to be humble enough. Like we talked about, I think a big subject on this podcast is just to really forgive people. And I really want your audience to know that one thing that I talk about twice in this book is forgiveness. And you really need to forgive. And there's somebody out there watching this podcast that you need to really forgive yourself. And the hardest person to forgive is always yourself. And that's true for me. So I really want to encourage somebody in your audience listening to this is forgive yourself. There's nothing that you could do that can keep you away from God. Believe me, if I was to sit here and tell you stories, I'm that prodigal son that came home and God ran and met me there. So be humble enough to know that God's forgiven you. So forgive yourself for that and let go, and let's get your life going.
That's an awesome way to end it. I'm going to put your links to your website if you want to just let everybody know what it is on the show right now. But I'm going to put links everywhere in the comments for the book, your website, everything. Yeah,
it's DanielGomezSpeaker.com. That's DanielGomezSpeaker.com. It's all one word, DanielGomezSpeaker.com. And actually, I got my 30 Days to Fly transformational program. And for your audience today, I want to upgrade them at no cost. So when they buy the 30 Days to Fly, I'm going to upgrade them, Matt, for this special session to the 12 weeks to fly personal growth. That's a whole 12 week of high definition videos. I'm going to give them the workbook, everything for free, almost a $500 value at the low price of the 30 Days to Fly of only $197. So that's on my website. Just click the 30 Days to Fly, and that's my gift from me to your audience today. So I definitely want to serve and give value to them for that.
That's an amazing value. I appreciate you doing that. It's very generous of you. And everybody, just if you haven't learned anything in this hour, shame on you, because there was a lot of really great insight brought by Daniel, some honesty, some integrity, some vulnerability. And I think it's been an amazing hour with you. And I truly do appreciate your heart. I appreciate your joy. I appreciate your passion for serving. And I wish you nothing but the best moving forward, brother.
Hey, well, Matt, thank you so much for having me. It's hard to believe the hour already went by. Where did it go?
I know, right? Well, listen, man, I appreciate it. Everybody, this has been another episode of the 2 Dates in a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler. Once again, my special guest today was Daniel Gomez, the amazing Daniel Gomez. Everything about him will be put into the links on the comments on Facebook. And once again, go to the website, buy his 30-day package, get a copy of his book, do everything you can to support Daniel because he certainly deserves it. All right, everybody, have a great day. God bless, and be kind to one another out there.
God bless you guys. Thank you.